Theodore Robert Cowell, aka Ted Bundy, was born on November 24, 1946 in Burlington, Vermont. He is best known for one of the biggest American serial killer and rapist, and one of the most notorious criminals of the late 20th century. Bundy was born from a single mother, but she didn't want him. He was raised as the adopted son of his grandparents and was told his mother was his sister. At the age of 3, he became fascinated by knives. But when he became a teenager, a darker side of his character started to emerge. Bundy liked to peer in other people's windows and thought nothing of stealing things he wanted from other people. After high school, Bundy went to the University of Washington, where he fell in love with a wealthy, pretty young woman. Many of his later victims resemble his college girlfriend, attractive students with long dark hair. There is still a debate on when he started his killings, but most sources say that he began his murderous rampage around 1974. By this time, he had already gained a lot of social and political matters. He had no antisocial behavior, therefore no one believed he was a murderer. Early 1970s, many women went missing in the Seattle area and Oregon area. They have been last seen with Ted Bundy, which started to put many doubts in people's minds. In 1974, Bundy moved to Utah for law school, and many women over there started to disappear again. The following year, he was pulled over by police, a search of his vehicle uncovered a cache of burglary tools, a crowbar, a face mask, ropes, and handcuffs. He was arrested for the possession of these tools, and the police began to link him to much more sinister crimes. In 1975, Bundy was arrested for kidnapping Carol DeRonch, and he was convicted to a 15-year jail sentence. 2 years later, Bundy was charged for many other deaths and tried to escape prison a couple of times. On his second jailbreak, on the night of January 14, 1978, Bundy broke into the Chi Omega sorority house of Florida State University and attacked 4 young female residents. Bundy did not admit anything he did and fought for his life, spending years appealing his death sentence. Bundy tried to take his case to the Supreme Court, but he was turned down. He even offered information of some of the unsolved murders to avoid Florida's electric chair, but he could not delay justice forever. In January 24, 1989, Bundy met his fate at the Florida State Prison. He was put to death around 7 a.m. that morning in an electric chair, sometimes known as Old Sparky. Outside the prison, crowd cheers and even set off fireworks after Bundy's execution.
Heather Gabriel Chinook, Inga Monique Hall, Tanya.
It is becoming depressingly familiar. Names of the latest women who police say were murdered by Robert Pickton.
Tanya Marlowe Pollock.
Robert Pickton's now.
Robert William Pickton searched for sex trade workers on Aston's in Vancouver East End, many of whom were not missed until long after they disappeared. Most of the women had a drug habit. 50% according to a survey by Prostitution Alternative Counseling and Education. After inviting the women back to his trailer on the pig farm located in Port Coquitlam, he proceeded to kill them. Some of the evidence suggests he shot the victims in the head, but testimony by one associate suggests he strangled the victims. After he murdered the victim, the body had to be dealt with. According to evidence and testimony, he moved the body to his slaughterhouse, where he also slaughtered pigs. One of the witnesses at his trial, who was also a sex trade worker with a drug habit, and therefore her testimony could be considered questionable, also stated she saw a woman hanging from a chain in his slaughterhouse. Body parts were discovered around the farm, including hands, parts of a jaw, and bones from hands. Some parts were found buried in the dirt and others in freezers. The most interesting were the skulls that were found. Most likely, skulls had been cut with a powered reciprocating saw. The remains were then disposed by either feeding the pigs or by dumping the disposal at the local rendering house. Although he was convicted of a second-degree murder for killing 6 women, there were original 27 murders he was charged with. It is possible that Robert Pickton had killed 49 women. His goal was 50, but he was stopped before he could finish. In December 2007, he was sentenced to life in prison with no possibility of parole for 25 years.
I had been to scenes where people had lost their lives, but I'd never been to anything quite like that before. Nothing nearly that bad.
Daniel Harold Rowling was born on May 26, 1954, in Shreveport, Louisiana. He is also known as the Gainesville Ripper, who murdered 5 students in Gainesville, Florida. Danny was a good boy when he was younger. He tried to stop his father from beating his mother, and in return was beaten for interfering. When he became a teenager, he hunted and killed many animals, including shooting a snake, and was also arrested many times for intoxication, and he was also spying on cheerleaders. In adulthood, he was caught for drug possession several times, caught for robbery, and doctors also said he was insane. But the hazard was just starting. In 1990, he murdered 5 students of the University of Florida and Santa Fe College in their dorms. DNA taken after a later arrest for robbery linked him to the slayings. When he came up for trial in 1994, he shocked the courtroom by pleading guilty. His motive was to become a superstar, a little bit like Bundy. In the end, Danny Rowling, Florida's most notorious serial killer since Ted Bundy, was executed by injection in Florida State Prison.